This is a metre long, and these are short tips. I think the short tips allow me to just have a little bit more flexibility. The round that I'm doing at the moment is a rest round that gives just a little bit of space after adding stitches. So I add all the stitches that I need to in one round, and then the round after that is plain stitches, just so that you get a chance to make this sit flatter. As if you try to add stitches into stitches into stitches, it's just not going to have a nice join. And I'm just coming up to that join there, and you can see where I've added the stitches into that. This has got a little neck across the top of the stitch there. That's because that stitch is formed from knitting into the back of a stitch. Which is what gives that sort of a rib thing going on there, where the mitre join is. Now, if you're doing a mitre join by adding one stitch to the end of each row as you go, some people will put a stitch marker at that join point so that they know to add a stitch on one side of the stitch marker and a stitch on the other side of the stitch marker. I'm doing it by counting because I can't be bothered making or finding stitch markers. And I can recognise my stitches enough that if I put down my work, I can see where I'm up to, because I can see where I have added the stitches. So at the moment, because I'm just at the start of my project, there aren't a huge number of stitches in a round. This is a hat that starts at the top with just 4 stitches and then works its way down, getting wider every 2 rows apart from at the start. At the very start you start off with 4 stitches and a little loop. It's very much like the start of a crochet project. And then after those 4 stitches are done, you knit 2 stitches into each, which makes a fast growth at the start. But after you start doing that, you do those rest rows in between. Now, this is the key to this sort of project. To see, at the moment I've got a long line coming off here, and this is the one that I've been knitting onto. And that's the halfway point there. If you cross them over, then it doesn't end up dragging that really wide. It just sits with the stitches nicely close together, so it doesn't leave a gap in between those 2 rows. So when I want to knit back up the other way, all I do is I pull my tip. If I want to rest my project, I will pull both tips right the way through and I'll get rid of this loop altogether. But then I have to pinch it quite tight and pull a loop back out there when I'm going back to knit. But as I need to have the pointy bit on this side here, I'm going to grab this part of the loop and then pull that till my pointy bit is on my left hand side, because I'm knitting right handed. And then I have this holding my stitch. Now you may end up with this stitch here getting a little loose or tight, as it's sitting here. I've just pulled this so that I have all this area here to do the knitting onto. And much like with this loop here crossing over so that it doesn't put lots of strain on there, what I'm basically doing is exactly the same thing here. I'm going to cross that so that it sits really close to where these are so that it doesn't have to reach very far and you don't end up with a gap. And then to start off the next row, just slide that up in there. At this point, it is wiser for me to be watching my work than trying to view what you guys are viewing through my screen. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my concentration and I'm going to lose where I'm at. And I'll lose the plot. But, you know, you just keep knitting from there. Ignore the cable that's getting in the way. Anybody else find it annoying that they use the word cable for meaning the line when you're doing circular knitting, and also for when you are taking a separate needle and making a windy bit in your knitting by swapping over rows? It's two different things, one word, but I suppose you get it from context, right? And as you see, they'll end up all going onto this side, and then that's much where I started off at the start of that video. Nice slow nitty. Okay, so that's, what am I doing? It's about with the chit chat 7 minutes a row at the moment, and that'll just get longer and longer as the rows get longer. So as I said, that's every second row that gets bigger, and every other row is a rest row, just so that it's not all pulling out of the same stitches. If I stretch that out, you can kind of see the pattern that's forming there. That'll sit as a double miter thing going on there, and that turns into a hat, I swear. Not just yet, but it does.